You'd think with how much pain that the world itself is in, and often how much pain we ourselves are in, that we'd understand the cause of pain, wouldn't you? But the reality is, we just do not understand the true causes of pain. We don't. And this is something that's very, very important to understand, what the real cause of pain is and what the real cause of pleasure is. Because many of us are addicted to doing things that we believe give us a, pleasure-based feeling, but in fact, it's going to result in pain. And many of us are avoiding the things that could give us that we believe could give us a painful feeling when actually it's going to give us pleasure. And that's what you would expect, wouldn't it, if our definition is of love is completely different than God's. So obviously that's something that we need to analyse. So what I'd like to do now with you is to talk about with you the true causes of pain and the true cause of pleasure, and also ask you the question about which way are we using our will in regard to these particular two things. Now, what I notice is that the majority of people, as I've said, all they do is they spend a lot of their life engaging behaviour which actually causes pain, but which they believe will give them pleasure. And when you think about it, that's quite crazy, isn't it? When you think about it, that we do that. But we do that. And this is why the majority of us, by the time we get into our 50s or 60s, we're starting to feel the effects of this kind of choice in our life. And if not before then. All right, so what are the true causes of pain and what are the true causes of pleasure is the question. All right, now what I'm going to do is outline them very carefully for you. Because I'm going to outline each one of them in 3 different ways that all mean the same thing, so that you get some sort of a grasp of what it means. Does that make sense? So the true cause of pain is having the intent to sin. So that's one definition. Intending to sin. Or you could say the aspiration or desire to sin inside of my soul. Now, what's another way of saying that? Well, you've seen the outline, so you should know. What is it? Can we, maybe Lily, you want to say?
I can't remember the outline, but I have seen it. So I'm just going to guess desiring to sin. Is that the same thing, basically?
Oh, it's the same thing, yeah. Let's say it another way, is what I'm looking for.
That's what I thought I was doing.
Yeah. If we had to carry on this side.
Using my will out of the definition of God's love, definition of love?
Yeah, so using my will out of harmony with God's definition of love. It's another way of saying it. Using my will out of harmony with God's definition of love. What's the third way of saying it? Mary?
Using my will to break God's loving laws.
Exactly. So using my will. These all mean the same thing. To break God's loving laws. So if I can just go a bit further, Rita, rather than we comment about it just yet. Using my will to break God's laws. Okay, so here we are. We've got 3 definitions which actually mean exactly the same thing, right? And all of them will result in pain. Every single one of them will result in pain. Now, you notice we don't even have to do it. We could just have the intent or the aspiration or the desire to do it. And that's enough, all right, to cause pain. You notice also that with regard to pain, the reason why I've raised the issue of pain is because pain is to me, it's an instant thing. It's not we're not talking about suffering here. We're just talking about pain versus pleasure as an instant feeling, right? So that's the true cause. That's the true cause of pain. You notice also it doesn't matter where the sin came from. Like, it doesn't matter whether somebody else put it inside of you through their intent to sin, or whether it came from your own choices and decisions. At the end of the day, if the sin's inside of you, and you intend to act upon that, it's going to cause pain. It doesn't matter where it came from. This is where we've got to start sort of not worrying so much where it came from and just instead focusing on feeling it. Now, of course, sometimes when you know where it came from, it's easier to feel. That's true. But we need to stop the analytical process of trying to work out where it came from when we already know what it feels like and just feel it instead. Yeah. Okay, so there's pain. Now, is there any comments or questions you'd like to ask at this point? If we come down to Pamela, across to Catherine as well.
Wouldn't there be included in that also using my will to resist God's truth?
Well, that's a sin.
Okay.
Resisting God's sin, and we've already said having the intent to sin.
Yeah.
Resisting God's truth is breaking God's laws.
Yeah.
So it already falls into that. Yep. Catherine?
It also doesn't matter whether we're on this path or not. Everybody has it. You know, it's not just us.
That's right. Yeah, it makes no difference who we are, where we are. It doesn't even make a difference even if we're in the spirit world or here.
No,
Makes no difference. Location on the earth makes no difference. Well, that's what I like about it. It's consistent, right? If we come to Rob. I'm just going to have a cough.
It's an active state on our behalf. It's not a passive thing, you know.
No, sin can actually be a passive thing too.
Okay.
Where you just choose to not do something.
Right. Yep.
So having the intent to not do something can be the intent to sin too.
So the other two are more sort of active, but...
Well, having the intent to not do something is using your will out of harmony with love. Like, love might dictate you do something.
Yep.
Right, and you choose to not do it, then you've sinned.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not about the activity or the lack of activity, because both may involve sin.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Good. And if we go to Rita, and then up to William.
So this also means as soon as my intent changes, whether I am in the depth of the hell on earth, like in prison or whatever, tortured, or in the depth of the hell in the spirit world, as soon as my intent changes, I get help.
Exactly.
I get spirit's help, or God's help, or something changes within me, and the pain, the physical or emotional pain, is released, or it's starting
the process is beginning. Yes. Yep. And the opposite is also true. As soon as I exercise my resistance, obviously there's going to be consequences there, because that's also out of harmony with God's laws of love and truth. Yeah, William?
I just wanted to know, sin, it is the sin itself, it's not the desire,
No, remember it's the desire, intent. Remember I said aspiration, intent or desire to sin? Yes.
So can you have sin inside of yourself with no desire to act upon it?
Highly unlikely. Yep. But you can not act upon it and also have no desire to act upon it. But it's highly unlikely. But also the sin still is inside of yourself, so that causes the second thing. So you can actually stop your pain while at the same time not stop your suffering. Well, let's look at suffering and see what the definition of suffering is. So what's suffering? Suffering is, like the definitions there are written down for you. So if we come down to Ange, or you can have a stab if you want without what's there.
The prolonging of sin.
Well, you could say the prolonging of sin, but let's be a bit more specific than that. If we come up the back, see.
I'm reading this, not remembering.
That's okay, Joellen. That's fine.
Refusing to remove from inside of myself, my soul, the desire, aspiration, or intent to sin over a long period.
Okay, so this one's having it, and this one's refusing to remove it. So one is an instant in time, the other is over a period of time. One is having it inside of oneself, and one is refusing to remove it inside from oneself. So, you can actually, can't you, have suffering without having pain. The instant pain of sinning. You can stop sinning, but still have suffering by not releasing the previous sin. Can you see? Right? Okay. So you could say it's refusing to use my will in harmony with love over a period. You could also say suffering is refusing to use my will or using my will to break God's laws over a period of time. That's going to create suffering. So one is about having a period of time and refusing to live in harmony with love and truth. The other is what happens instantly in time. Right, the moment you choose. You follow? Yeah, if we go to Paige and then down to Alan at front here.
AJ, I'm a little bit confused.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't refusing to remove the sin that's already in our soul also a sin?
Of course it is.
Which would then cause pain?
Well, it causes more suffering than pain, doesn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. Refusing to remove something just leaves it in there. It's a bit like, if you can think of sin like having a splinter in your arm or something, right? Now, the pain is when it just shoots in. There and then you've got some pain, right? But the reality is you could leave it in there, and sometimes it's not that painful for a little while, is it? After the initial pain, it's not that painful to leave it there. And, you know, in your past, you might have even chosen to do that at some points in time. But what happens with your body? The wound starts festering, and it starts, you know, you get a whole big pus around it, and it all starts trying to reject it. And then whenever you touch it, it's painful again and painful again and painful again whenever you just touch it. That's like the suffering that happens from not removing the problem immediately. You follow? Yep.